On Saturday, August 29th, the Golden Eagles are hosting the U.S. Men's Olympic Rugby Fundraising Gala beginning at 6 p.m. at the University Club in downtown San Diego. The evening will bring together current members of the U.S. Men's Rugby Sevens team, USA Rugby legends, and special guests for dinner, a program, and an auction featuring signed jerseys, rugby balls, and other items. The goal is to raise critical funding for athletes and programs representing the United States as they build towards the 2028 Olympic Games in Los Angeles. That support includes player development and the Golden Eagles Care Program, career advancement rugby enhancements, which connects athletes with mentorship, professional development, and paid internship opportunities. It allows them to begin preparing for life after competition while continuing to train and represent their country at the highest level. 100% of the donations received go directly towards supporting USA Rugby Sevens athletes and programs, while the organization's overhead is covered separately by an anonymous group of donors. If you love sports, believing in supporting the Olympic athletes, or simply want to experience something special happening within the San Diego community, this is an opportunity to meet the team, become part of the rugby community, and invest in the journey towards LA 28. Tickets are available now through the link in the episode's description. You can also learn more by visiting goldeneagles.org or following at golden.eagles7s on Instagram. Today's guest is a two-time Olympian and one of the most physical players in the history of American Rugby Sevens. He represented the United States at the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio and the 2020 Olympic Games in Tokyo. He competed in 2 Rugby World Cups and helped establish the United States as a legitimate force on the international sevens circuit. Today, he serves as the executive director of the Golden Eagles, supporting the current generation of American rugby players throughout their careers and helping them prepare for life after competition. Welcome to Wellness on the Rocks, Mr. Danny Barrett. Are you a Barstool Sports fan by any chance?
I have been on Barstool a number of times. PFT's a rugby guy.
Yeah.
So every so often I'll give him a call and, hey, are you coming to this? Are you going to be at that? You know, if you want tickets, I got him tickets. We played the Maori All Blacks in Chicago 2016, and I got him tickets.
The only reason I ask is because I grew up like a huge Barstool Sports fan. That's sort of like how I got into the podcast thing, was from like being a fan of their show for so many years. But I played college rugby for 3 years as well at University of New Hampshire. And I think, I'm in my mid-20s playing, and you get to the end of your playing career and you go like, what do I do now? My whole identity was as an athlete, and, you can get into business. I fell into the restaurant industry, and I felt that working in bars and restaurants was like my new way to compete on the professional level, I guess. And now I'm in my mid-30s, and I've been in the industry for over a decade and stuff, and I'm just trying to grow and expand. And I've learned like so many things about the restaurant industry, business, people, from being behind the bars. And I just like talk to people, and I created this platform for people to kind of like grow and use it as a tool to express themselves, man. So I'm really cool. I'm really happy that we've been able to connect and have you on today. So thank you for joining me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, kind of a chance encounter, right?
Yeah.
At a bar, boat racing, Korean guy. So
yeah, I was thinking about that, dude. It was really, so I work at Stell Public House. It's the Irish bar in downtown San Diego. And I think it was like right in the middle of the World Cup about a month ago. You and some of your guys' teammates came in, and you guys were promoting this gala event for USA Rugby that's coming up at the end of August at the University Club right around the corner from where I work, to try to raise money for the 2028 LA Olympics. And dude, it was just cool, man, because you and your teammates, you guys came in with such good energy. You guys instantly started mixing it up with the regulars. There was some Navy guys. There's some dudes with like Korea World Cup jerseys on. You guys started doing USA versus Korea boat races, but it was all like super good fun. And so it was a pleasure to like have you guys. So thank you for bringing that energy in.
yeah, I mean, that's what we do, right? I mean, a bunch of rugby guys, we're not afraid of anything. We're, obviously love to have a good time. And the game's such a multicultural game. It's the biggest little community in the world. You go anywhere in the world, you're 6 degrees of separation away from a guy or gal on that team, and it's like, hey, why not? Like, let's just have a good time. We're all here to have fun. So, yeah, boat racing was a good way to get the juices flowing and meet some people, and yeah, just it was a great time.
So, you grew up in California playing football. Why did you make the transition to rugby?
For me, it was I played high school football. I played a bit of Pop Warner Pee Wee football, and in high school we ran the option. We ran speed option. I was a tight end, so you're an undersized offensive lineman, and it wasn't my favorite thing. Every time I got to touch the ball, it was awesome, but that might have been a couple times a season, if that. And then I actually ended up not having the grades to play baseball, so I was academically ineligible to play baseball, and rugby wasn't a school sport. So I went out and played rugby. I had a deal with the baseball coach that, hey, once you get your grades back up at the end of the quarter or whatever, we'll hold a spot for you on the baseball team so you can come out and play. I said, all right, sweet. 3 months later, end of March or whatever it was like, yeah, I got my grades up, but I'm not playing baseball anymore. I found something that's a lot better, and rugby just gave that opportunity to, coming from the option system, pretty much being an offensive lineman, to now I get the ball and I get to make my own decisions. I get to do what I want to do and show my athleticism. At that point I was 14. I didn't understand, like, I got to show my athleticism within a team construct. Now, hey, you do you, but we got your back. This is how we are going to play, but do your thing. Have fun with it. Offense, defense, all skills, all players. There is no, the coaches aren't telling you what to do nonstop. Like, it's not, hey, you block this guy, you block that guy. That's how we're going to play. It's, here's the framework. Work within the framework. Do what you got to do within a framework. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we live to fight another day. So for me, it was, one, I got to touch a ball, more frequently. But two, I had the freedom to do what I wanted. And that was like, once I got that, it was, okay, let's go.
Dude, I felt that way too. So I grew up playing football my whole life, did 3 years of rugby at University of New Hampshire. And once I started playing rugby, it was this like free flowing, catch the ball, throw the ball, tackle, kick the ball. It's almost like less structured, but also like you have these decisions in rugby where you're either all in or you're all out. And with football, you had these like high speed collisions, and it was like these crazy high moments and like start to stop from when the ball is snapped. But like, I don't know, there's something about when I started playing rugby, it was like this like mentally toughens me up, because it's like you're either all in, you're all out, and sometimes you get smoked and you regret it. And it's just like, I feel like I definitely grew from even just 3 years of playing rugby. And so, when I first Googled you, man, you are two-time Olympian with the Rio Olympics and the Tokyo Olympics for the USA men's national rugby team, the Sevens. And the first clip that came up, man, it was Danny Barrett loves violent collisions. That was the first thing I saw, and I was like, yes, hell yeah, dude. I also saw there was that clip of you from the 2019 LA Sevens where you break your arm in the middle of gameplay going for a tackle. You get up with a broken, you go down, break your arm. You get up, you go make a play at a ball, make a one-arm diving tackle. There ends up being a turnover on downs. USA gets the ball. Your trainers come out onto the field to assist you during live gameplay. You pop up, brush them off, go make a ruck, and your teammate runs down and scores a try. Like, what was going through your head when that happens?
Yeah, so, I step down, we make a double tackle, Carlin Isles and myself. Carlin, not the biggest guy, but he's a 10-1 100-meter sprinter. C-Fly, as he was affectionately known, was fast enough to make the London semifinals in the 100 meters, but he wasn't fast enough to make the American team. So if he ran for any other country, he would have been, he would have been up for it. So, 5'7", 5'8", 165 pounds, as explosive as a horse. Incredible. So I step down, I throw my left shoulder, and contrary to the video, I actually didn't break my arm. When I hit, the nerves, I shut off all the power to my left arm. So I couldn't move my arm after that, and I got up. Ben Pinkelman, Pinky didn't push across, so I got up and I threw my right hand to make the next tackle, and I actually ended up breaking, I don't know if you can see the scar there, I ended up 8 screws in a plate.
Oh, damn.
Right in there. But it's one of those things like, hey man, I'm hurt. Like, there is pain running through my body, but at the same time, like, they need me. Like, doesn't matter. Get up, do the next job, and get to the stoppage and play at the very least. So for me, it was like I was doing my job. I was never, by no means was I the fastest guy on the team, but I was pretty good at running into people. So, I love the contact side of it. I love hitting people. I grew up with 2 older brothers, just the 3 of us, and kind of got my ass kicked all the time. And that's just how it went, being, the youngest, the runt of the litter, right? So, hey man, the physicality, the contact, and just, if you don't get up and move, you're going to get your ass kicked again. So, hey, on to the next job. Let's get to a stoppage, and then we'll get looked at. At that point, that kind of, they took me off right after that. And then, shortly, 30, 45 seconds later, the first half ended. And I remember like, man, my friggin' hand is killing me. So I didn't know it was broken. I should have, because I've broken 2 other bones in that hand. But I was like, hey, I'm ready to go. Like, my arm's good. Like, put me back in if you need me. Like, I'm here. Ended up getting x-rays after. The thing was in about 1,000 pieces. Got it fixed, and a couple days later, and then came back and played about 6 to 8 weeks after reconstructive surgery on my right hand. But it's just one of those things, like, we go through so much, and so that tournament was actually in Vegas. We go through so much, like, in training, putting in so much work. Frankly, it's miserable. Like, I don't want to play anymore because I know what it takes to play at that level, and I don't want to do that work anymore because it's tough. So I have to be here for these guys. Like, at the end of the day, they're counting on me, and I'm counting on them for the same exact thing. I don't think any of those guys would have done anything different. Get up, get on with it. Let's make it to a stoppage, and we'll get you subbed out. We'll make a change, and we'll get you looked at. So for me, I was just doing my job.
Yeah, dude, that's the reality for a lot of us in athletics. And, it happened to me in my mid-20s where I had a bunch of injuries with my neck and shoulder and partially torn patella tendon, all those things. And I think that whether you're a man or a woman and you stop playing competitive sports at high school or college, or for your case, the Olympics, you got to find something to do with that energy after you stop playing to keep that competitive mindset growing. And It seems like, I transitioned into restaurants. I'm now doing podcasting and connecting with people. You're now the executive director of USA Rugby. So
the Golden Eagles.
The Golden Eagles,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
So we're a nonprofit that raises money and supports the Olympic form of the game.
Got you.
USA Rugby, their own organization. We are strictly focused on USA Sevens, the Olympic format, and making sure the guys and gals are taken care of.
How has that transition been? And I know you guys have the CARE program. So what is your role dealing with that? Or can you kind of talk to me about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, getting out of sport's tough. Like, I had a pretty tough time. I've been out, I retired just over 3 years ago now. And, there's been a lot of, like, ups and downs. I was playing in a sport. I had a changing room full of guys, that were there every single day. eat, sleep, breathe, train. Like when you go out to the bars on the weekend, like you're going out with those guys, and that's it. And I was lucky enough to do it for 10 years. And, I moved after I retired. We moved back to my wife's hometown up in Washington State, and smaller town, agricultural town, not much rugby up here. And I don't really know anybody because I didn't grow up here. So, and I work from home. So, what am I going to do to really, find my people? I help out with the rugby team in town. There's a high school team. There's a kind of a struggling men's program as well. But honestly, for me, like, it's going to sound cliche, but I got into a CrossFit gym. How do you know somebody does CrossFit? They're going to tell you, right? But I joined it for the community. My two least favorite things about being a professional athlete were lifting weights and running. I hated it. But, I'm going and doing something difficult, and I see the same people, day in and day out, every time I go, and like, that's been the best part is I get to get out and talk with people. Moving into the Golden Eagles stuff is like, the group's been around since about 2012, 2013. So we're going on, 13, 14 years now. I took over as executive director August 1st, 2023. And, you mentioned the CARE program. That's one of the main avenues that we give to. And, I'll get into that in a second. Our two main avenues are care and development pathways. There's not enough rugby players in the United States and enough rugby players at that elite level, that top 0.1% that are going to be able to play and be able to manage the demands of the game and of the sport at that level. The training load, the mental, emotional, physical, all of that stuff, it's difficult. Like it's really tough because it's such a stressful environment. When I miss one tackle, I might not get picked. I miss a tackle in training, like, hey, my career could be over. There's a few 100,000 other people that want my job. And I'm, one of 20, 25 guys or gals that are able to do it, that are in that spot training day in and day out. So, it's a pretty stressful environment. And for us, the CARE program, so CARE is an acronym for Career Advancement Rugby Enhancement. The players are based down in Chula Vista. They don't make much money. They're independent contractors. They pay taxes at the end of the year. It's a difficult spot to be and a difficult spot to live when you're making under 50 grand a year.
Oh yeah.
And, you're working 12 months a year. You're traveling, you're training, you're missing out on birthdays and childbirth. If you got friends and family that are having kids or having weddings, birthdays, holidays. I think I spent 9 birthdays in a row out of the country, personally. Wow. I missed Thanksgiving for like 11 years. So, it's tough. Like you miss that time with your family and being away from it. You probably don't have the money to fly home, even if you want to get there to go do it. So we created the CARE program in an effort to allow the players to train and, focus on competing. Like we're here to medal. We're here to win. That's what America does. Is America loves winners. Successful sport is what we want. And at the end of the day, guys and gals aren't making NFL money, MLB money, NBA money. They're making a couple grand a month, maybe. My first contract, I made $700 a month. And what are you going to do after rugby ends? There's, as I'm sure you've heard, Taylor, the common quote in rugby is the sideline never misses a tackle. And it's a great quote. I've had referees who aren't paying attention and the sidelines missed a tackle before. But the one thing that definitely is true is Father Time doesn't miss a tackle. Everybody has a retirement date, whether it's, 18 years old or it's 45 years old like Tom Brady. I'm sure you're a Patriots fan, so I don't mean to pander, but he's from my neck of the woods in Northern California.
It's true. Yeah.
We had the same dentist growing up.
He's got some nice teeth.
So, yeah, right? I mean, he's got the money for nice teeth because he played for 25 years. But what are the rugby players going to do once the final whistle blows, once Father Time calls time on their career? So we've built out an internship program to where the athletes can still focus on career building. Everybody thinks that, oh, you're an Olympian, you'll get it. It's so easy to get a job. No, it's not. Oh, you have so many transferable skills. Like what? Team building. Okay. I know how to, bullshit in the changing room for 4 or 5, 6, 7 hours a day. I know how to get on an airplane and travel for 16, 18, 30, 42 hours. Like, what are those transferable skills and how do we use them? And, I think giving the athletes an outlet outside of the game, Chula Vista is a black hole. I mean, you're 8 miles east of 805.
Yeah.
So, like, what are you going to do while you're stuck down there for as long as you are? Steve Thomasine, the captain of the men's team, has been on the team for 14 years. How are you going to make money? Steve came in as just finished his freshman year at San Diego State. He didn't even have time to work because he's been playing professional rugby for the last 14 years. And, what are we going to do to help that guy, be successful in life after the game? I always say, I'm afraid of 3 things in life: snakes, heights, and the fear of the unknown. And once rugby was over, it's like, man, what am I going to do now? How am I going to feed my family? I had a daughter at the time. I had my wife was pregnant with my son. Like, how am I going to feed them? How am I going to house them? How am I going to do all this different kind of stuff? And because of the care program, it's like, all right, you don't just have a 10-year gap on your resume from when you graduated college. You have things that you've done. You have skills that you've learned. And I did 3 internships in footwear. The chairman of the board for us is, a world-renowned cobbler. He makes shoes for pretty much every pair of shoes you've ever seen. He's got something to do with it. And, he was lucky. I was lucky enough to go join a couple of his companies for, the summer and the off season. And when we had the time, and, that set me up to end up taking over this job and being invited into this role and say, hey man, you can build relationships. You know how to talk to people. You know how to talk to customers. You're fun to be around. You know the game like the back of your hand. Like, that's everything we need. And because of the care program, like, it gave me the skills and the understanding of what sales really is. And it's relationships. To me, it's all relationships. And I was lucky enough to worked in oil brokerage for a little bit as an intern in a couple summers. And hey man, it's a tough business. But if you treat them right, if you treat people right, they're going to take care of you. And your network is as big as, it's bigger than you think it is. Because if you have a good relationship, I treat Taylor right, your network is now open to me. There's people, back all over the East Coast that, hopefully you like me. You'd be like, hey man, I think you should take this guy's call. Like, he's an interesting guy, but your buddy's going to take that phone call because he trusts you. And you're going to, tell your buddy to take that phone call because you trust me. And we've built a good relationship together. So for me, that's such a big thing. And I don't put my roots in places. I put my roots in people. Those are the ones that I want to be around. And the care program is opening that up to the current athletes right now to say, okay, there's all these different things I can do. And there's this huge network of people that I don't even know want to help me. So how do I get involved in it? It's been a massive, massive part for us is people helping people.
Dude, it's so interesting hearing you say that. It's just the act of giving and generosity and trying to build genuine connections with authentic people is so important in your sports world, in the business world, when you're working in restaurants. And it's tough because, at least from my perspective, working in restaurants, I deal with some very challenging people like all the time. But yeah, I mean, but no, dude, it's the act of giving, and there's like such a exponential reward that comes with that if you just keep, if we keep that mindset of trying to be authentic and give and be kind to each other. It's like the thing that reciprocates back to us, I felt like, in the long term. And you're so absolutely right about the network. It's like, we're kind of endorsing each other with this podcast today. And it's like, you bump into each other years down the road, and the next thing you know, we're working together. And that's like one of the big things I've learned working in bars, is just to like lead with kindness and to not put my opinions onto other people, is to just listen, be the ear. I've gotten to know so many people over the years who have such challenging lives, whether you are getting out of sports or business or whatever career path that it is. And it's like, sometimes just talking about those things and saying like, hey dude, I hear you and understand you. And you're right. Like transitioning from how you did as a pro athlete into, regular life is scary. That's our identities. How I have a kid on the way. How am I going to feed that kid? So community, like you said, is such good things. So, you and me are guys. Rugby, it's a tough sport. There seems to be in America right now this push with women's sports, and I'm personally seeing it on the professional level with the WNBA, with professional soccer, with San Diego Wave, and you see it with the USA men's women rugby team as well. And it's actually funny that we're recording this today on July 30th. This is 2 years to the date when the women's team took the bronze medal at the Olympics. And, you had Alex Sedrick, who had that last second game-winning try.
Stud.
To get the bronze medal. Unbelievable. She breaks 3 tackles, goes the full length of the pitch, gets the bronze medal. First medal for the women's rugby team.
So there's a funny part with that is at that time they brought Spiff on towards the end of the game. Spiff Sedrick, as she's affectionately known. But who they took off to put Spiff on was the kicker. And, just like in football, rugby, you have to kick in conversion after you score the try. And the emergency kicker in that situation was Spiff. And Spiff is, you can ask her, I'm not being mean, she's not the greatest kicker. And, after running, like you said, breaking 3 tackles, 95 meters from the shadows of her own goal line, scoring under the post. Hey, we tied it. It's 12-12. Everybody's super excited, and everybody knows if you score under the post, you kick from under the post. If you score out on the sideline, you kick from the sideline. And Spiff was fast enough and good enough that she scored right under the post. It's not a guarantee. You still have to make the kick. And, everybody's celebrating, going crazy, like, oh, it's pretty much a gimme at that point. And Spiff's like, shitting bullets here. Like, all right, one, I'm exhausted. 2, now I have to kick this, and if I make this, we're winning a medal. And, I don't even know if she would be third in line to be the kicker. She might be even a bit lower than that. And, knocks it over right in front, pressure on. And I remember sitting in the stands. So I was in Paris watching the games, and I was sitting with the men's captain, Kayvon Williams. And they put Spiff on, it's probably 2-3 minutes left. And Kayvon turned around and looked at me, and he's like, get Spiff a ball. And I think one of the coolest things about that is, and it's probably not recognized as much, is Australia's by far and away one of the best teams in the world on the women's side. Also a very, very strong men's team as well. Spiff chased a girl down from behind 40 meters. One of the fastest players in the world. Spiff caught her from behind. 10, 12, 15 meters from the goal line. We end up getting a turnover. We go one phase, down. We go another phase. And then Spiff gets it 95 meters from the goal line. Fend, Bosch, let's go. And off to the races. And that chase down from behind, that would have put us down. If she doesn't get there, that puts us down 17-5 with no time left, and game's over at that point. So that it was that 1 minute 40 seconds before where Spiff makes that chase down, and then she's got the the cardiovascular fitness to then go 95 meters on top of it against probably 2 or 3 girls that are on that team that are some of the fastest players in the world. And stud, absolute stud.
Nuts. Yeah, dude. It gives you, I feel like that just uplifts, having the USA women's team get the bronze. It almost like it says we can invest into USA rugby in not only just the women's but the men's, and this is something that like we can compete at the highest level. And then you have her teammate Ilona Maher, who is one of the best. Just such an incredible athlete. She's an icon for women's sports. She's all about women's body positivity. And, when I was growing up playing rugby almost 10 years ago, there was a women's team. I have some friends on the team. I dated one of the girls on the team. But I feel like we're in this era now where there's this huge push for women's sports with physical health, mental health, body positivity. And it's exciting to watch and see. Whereas 5-10 years ago, nobody cared,
Yeah. I think you mentioned Lowe. Lowe's could not be a better ambassador for the game, because it's not just rugby, but rugby is the vessel that can lead to so much positivity in the world, just in general. And what she's doing with the body positivity for young girls, not just young girls, but women in general. I'm lucky enough that I'm married to a U.S. women's national team player.
Wow.
My wife played for the team for 3 years. She grew up in a small town in Washington. We probably never would have met if we both weren't at the training center at the same time. But the way Lo carries herself, and I don't want to give her too much credit because we like to give each other a hard time quite a bit whenever we see each other. The way she played, she played kind of like I did. She's probably a bit faster than me, had different skills than I did. But she was the enforcer, and at a time when the team needed it, and she came in like a bat out of hell. And, I think she was really smart in, the business endeavors of, how to use social media and how to grow, your personal brand. I mean, came in second on Dancing with the Stars. She's been Sports Illustrated Swimsuit magazine. She's great. Lo, if you listen to this, you're not that cool. But no, she's awesome. She's so outgoing. She's so willing to help as well. I think, I was doing a thing. I was over at a Halloween party at a gentleman's house in town who his daughter plays rugby, 16-year-old girl. And I FaceTimed Lo. I texted her and said, hey, are you busy? I got this gal that's playing rugby and, you're her idol. As I'm sure there's many, many people out there that would agree with that. So, hey, Kaylee, come here. Gal wants to talk to you. And I could not have gone over better. She ran off down the hallway after the phone call, and I could hear her tires squealing. And that's kind of who Lo is. She answers the bell when you need her. And, you said it. She's a phenomenal ambassador. She's a great rugby player. She's a great person too.
Yeah, no, totally. And I said something earlier that I said nobody cares. People care. What I meant by that is just on the national level and with social media and everything is there's definitely more of a push for a fan base and a market, I guess, for women's sports. Whereas 5-10 years ago, that's kind of what I meant by that. But there was the last month in June, the USA men's sevens. They had that upset over Fiji, and where they took 5th place at Bordeaux.
Mm-hmm.
That I feel like that victory, like I kind of said with the women's getting the bronze, also contributed to the USA can compete with some of these top teams, and we should be investing money, time, development players. Like, what do you think about that win over Fiji in terms of impact moving forward for the team?
Yeah, I think for the current players right now, it was massive. New head coach, Zach Test Zach's one of my best friends. He was my roommate on tour as players for 3 or 4 years. Finally into the coaching ranks and coaching the team that, he pretty much grew up on. He joined at 18 and left at 28, 29, 30 years old. And finally he's able to push them to really understand who they can be. The 2018, 2019 season, we finished second in the world. We lost to Fiji in the semifinal of the last tournament of the season for them to go on to win the series. So 5-6 years later, they come back. They hadn't played very well. In the World Championship part of the series, in the last 3 tournaments of the season, they lost 8 games in a row to start that. And they had to finish in the top 8 of that 12-team series to earn qualification back into Tier 1. And they lose 8 games in a row, and it's like, dude, this is going to be tough. And, they rattle off 2 wins, the back of Valladolid, Spain, the weekend before Bordeaux. They go undefeated in pool play in Bordeaux. They get a little bit of help from Germany beating Kenya. It's like, all right, we got a chance here. We got to win these next 2 games, and we got a chance to get back up to Tier 1. And unfortunately, we lose the quarterfinal. But because Germany did that job for us against Kenya, and we got that little bit of help we needed, it's like, all right, we just got to win the next one. And then it's like, oh man, it's Fiji. It's like, this is going to be tough. And if you know anything about rugby, Fiji, 2016, 2020 gold medalist, had never lost a game in the Olympics. I think they've only ever lost 1 game in the Olympics over 3 Olympic cycles. And, perennial, challengers for the best team in the world in sevens. It's like, all right, we got to beat Fiji now. And then, we go down, I think it was 14 or 12-0 the end of half, or, close to that. And, score a couple tries. All right, we're back in it, but we're still down. And there's like 15 seconds left on the clock. We ended up scoring in the corner in stoppage time. I think we went a minute and a half into stoppage time. And, I think what that game did for the players on the field is it created belief. Hey, man, we're meant to be here. We can do this. We can play. Like, that's how it goes. So, that's a big part of the game, is the mental, emotional side of it.
Yeah. Yo, so I want to have a question about you. What was it like trying out for the Olympics, and when you found out that you were going to be on the team? How old were you, and can you kind of just like walk me through what was going on with you when that happens?
Yeah, so I was for Rio, I would have been 26. For Tokyo, because it got pushed because of COVID, I was 31.
Okay.
And I'll probably talk more about the Tokyo Olympics. I think that one was tough because I was ready to retire, in 2020. Like, that was going to be my last tournament. And to then have it pushed a year,
Yeah.
and you're like, hey, this is like, I wasn't expecting this. I got married in 2020. My daughter was born in 2022. My wife was pregnant while I was gone at the Olympics. I think it was a tough build-up because we didn't have competition. We weren't really playing. COVID had shut the world down. I was going through a couple injury things, and my feet were starting to give out on me. And it's like, hey, how do you go from being 100% prepared to give it up and end the game to, hey man, it's time to keep going. You got one more year left in you. So that was mentally, it was really tough. And I think once you get selected for something like that, there's so much pride, like there's so much pride coming from around you, and you also feel for the guys that didn't get picked. The guys that had worked just as hard, done just as much, and they didn't get the nod. You want everybody to be able to do it, and everybody around you, everybody in your network and your circle is so excited and so happy for you that it's hard. It's hard to be excited about. Don't get me wrong, like you're stoked, but that's just the beginning of it. Like being named in the team, you still haven't competed, and you still haven't done the job. We came off the back of 18-19 season, the most consistent team the series has ever seen. We're the only team ever to make every single semifinal in a single season. And as Americans, we're not supposed to do that. Like, they don't want us here. Yeah. They don't want us to do that. The rest of the world, I think the rest of the world's afraid of what we can be. And that 18-19 season, we showed it. So we had some pretty good runway leading into Tokyo. COVID shut everything down, unfortunately. We finally get into Tokyo. We play that, the first day. We play Kenya and Ireland. We go in, play South Africa. We beat Kenya. We beat Ireland. We lose to South Africa in pool play, but we make a quarterfinal. Hey, man, we win this quarterfinal. We're playing for a medal no matter what. And we ended up losing the quarterfinal. And we lost to Great Britain, Team GB. Their head coach had been our assistant coach 8 months earlier. And he left. He's English. He left and went back to, coach his nation. You can't hold that against him. We were up 21-0 at one point, and we lost 26-21. 21-7 at halftime. So we lost that one. I still have a black hole in my heart from that coach. But next up, we have Canada. And the only reason Canada made that Olympic cycle is because we did so well. They didn't have to play us in the regional qualifier. We beat them in the 2015 Olympic qualifier after we were given a 10% chance to qualify for the 2016 Olympics. So we finished, top 4 in the world. The way it works is the top 4 automatically qualify for the Olympics in that 18-19 season. So Canada had a pretty easy route. And, we're pretty bent out of shape after losing to GB in the quarterfinal. And, there's some tears shed in the changing room. We kind of lost our chance at medaling. And I remember going into the warm-up before the Canada game, on day 3 of the tournament, it's like, hey, have you felt bad about that? Like, imagine how bad we're going to feel if we lose to Canada, the team that shouldn't be here, the team that the only reason they're here is because we're that damn good. And, people were, still kind of, sulking, I'll say. They're still pretty upset. And I was like, hey, get on my back. We're going to win this game, and I don't care what we got to do for it. So if you don't got it in you, follow me. I'm in for it because I'm not losing to them. I grew up, every single one of my rival teams from high school through college, through national team rugby was always red. Canada's red. It's I'm not losing to them. I'm not a huge fan of Canada. I wasn't a huge fan of the guys on the team. I got a decent relationship with them now that we're all retired. But hey, man, this is the North American rivalry. You saw it a couple years back in the Four Nations, the hockey all-star stuff. The USA-Canada games were always a fist fight, quite literally in the first matchup. And hey, we're here to win. We are on this team to win games. And we're on this team to beat that team. Because that's who we are and that's what we do as American athletes. So, we went in and we ended up beating them. And then we ended up playing South Africa again for sixth place or for fifth place, and we lost to South Africa in that one in a pretty hotly contested match. But I think the pride that so many people around you have, and what you've been able to accomplish, like my parents. So I always wore number 3, and I'll get emotional about this part. I always wore number 3, and the greatest thing in the world was it had Barrett 3 on the back, and my parents were so proud of the 3 Barrett boys, my brothers and I. We all went to Cal. We all played rugby at Cal. We all won national championships. But I was able to bring my family with me through that, the 3 Barrett boys. That's who we were. Oh, the 3 Barrett boys are over there. The 3 Barrett boys are doing this. The 3 Barrett boys are at Cal playing rugby. So I was able to bring them with me the entire way. I wouldn't have played if they didn't play. As the youngest sibling, you kind of get dragged on to everything. And so, you just kind of follow in their footsteps. And luckily enough, they fell into the game, and I fell in and had a pretty decent career. But, being able to go to an Olympic Games, to go to 2 of them, to go to play in 2 World Cups, like knowing that I had my brothers with me through, our last name on the back of a shirt is pretty cool. So there is an immense amount of pride in it, even though we didn't finish the job the way we wanted to. My family was there with me. My brothers were there with me. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without them.
Bro, there really is this like camaraderie that comes with playing rugby on any level you have, and it's even with the opponents after the games with the when you drink at the after parties, and it's something I'm so glad that even for like 3 years that I was able to make this part of my sports life. I learned so much from that, and you're absolutely, I know, it's like, how do we as like American sports develop young athletes, men and women, to chase rugby as opposed to like some of the other incredibly popular sports like football, basketball, hockey, soccer, things like that. Like, I'm just trying to think, as I played football growing up, I didn't start playing rugby until my 20s. It sounds like you were kind of similar. Like, can we make a push to grow the sport in the decades to come? What do you think about that?
First and foremost, it comes to funding. I've long said that, as long as we can get kids to play the game early, middle school, if you're going to start in high school, like at least you have a base layer of the game. If you go on and you get a college football or softball or basketball or water polo, whatever scholarship it is, if you're lucky enough to be, one of that 1% to go on and, play collegiate sports on someone else's dime, dude, do it. Go. Because in my mind, we're outsourcing your strength conditioning and your physical development. Like rugby doesn't have the money to be able to do that. A lot of these programs, like I'm sure at UNH, it's a club program.
Yeah.
The coach comes in, you train Tuesday, Thursday nights, and you play on Saturdays. Like that's pretty basic for rugby in the U.S. So if we can outsource all your strength conditioning, as long as in your physical development as an athlete, if you can catch, you can pass, the rules of the game, like there's only going to be 1% of those college athletes, less than 1% of those college athletes that are going to go on to play in the NFL, to play in the WNBA, to play in Major League Baseball, whatever sport it is, to play professionally in their sport of choice. But hey, man, like you have a background. You've played the game before. Perry Baker, 2-time player of the year, American kid, grew up in Florida, went to, Division II college football in West Virginia, and played 1 season of rugby in high school, senior year of high school, and tried to make it to the NFL, was unlucky and missed out. Had some knee issues, whatever, and how the NFL is. They're combing through everything with a fine-tooth comb. They're looking for a reason to say no. And that 1 year of Perry's high school rugby came back to probably be one of the best decisions of his life. He played for 10 years on the national team, played in 3 Olympic Games, was a 2-time player of the year, and was a phenomenal talent. He was the first person to win back-to-back Player of the Years. And that second season, he only played 6 tournaments of 10. And so for him to be able to do that, like, we want the kids to, hey man, there's a huge price tag if you make it to the NFL, if you make it to the professional league, go for it. We're always here for you. Like, we want to be here for you when you want us. We're not going anywhere. So alongside that, I think one of the best things is now rugby got so big in kind of the 2000s, 2010s that so many people played it. And, you know, through high school, through college, and those people are all starting to have kids now. I have 2 kids. I have 5 nephews from my brothers, and you know, they're all going to start playing rugby. Both my brothers are coaching rugby, and they want their kids to play because they understand not just the athletic development, but also the societal development. You know, how good of a person you become. You need to get used to doing hard things, kid. Life's tough, get a helmet. And you're going to have to do hard stuff in rugby within a team construct, going back to what I was talking about earlier, to where it's going to set you up for, you know, completing these hard tasks later in life, whether you continue to play forever or not. You know, hopefully you do. But there's so many people that are now putting their kids into rugby and getting involved and volunteering, you know, because they understand what the game can do for them. I shouldn't have gone to college. I graduated high school with a 2.4 GPA, which is backwards of what it took to get into Cal. You know, most of those kids that are getting into Cal on academics are 4.0 and above. And they looked at me like, what are you doing, buddy? I applied to some colleges and I didn't even get a rejection letter.
Wow.
I didn't go to college to play school, but the best thing I ever did was graduate. The hardest thing I've ever done was graduate. And rugby was what got me into, you know, the #1 public university in the country. And I'd give up everything to graduate. And, you know, I had an opportunity to take a professional contract in England in 2013 if I would have, you know, if I would have went and got my first cap with the 15s national team, I would have been on a professional contract in England before Christmas. And I turned it down to graduate. And, you know, my parents put so much time, so much money, and so much effort into, you know, all 3 of us going to college and graduating. That's like, hey, man, at the time I didn't realize what I was doing it for. I was doing it for, you know, I was doing it for them. But now it's like, dude, that was so difficult, and it was such a tough choice to make that I'm so glad that I made it, because it's, you know, it set me up in this position with the Golden Eagles and to be able to talk to people. So, you know, I think where there's an influx of, back to my original point, there's an influx of people that have benefited from the game in some way, shape, or form. You know, they enjoyed it for however long they did, and they want their kids to be involved in it because they understand how great of a community it is. So, yeah, that's the best part, and I think, you know, we're going to have a lot of youth rugby players coming through the pipeline here pretty soon.
Yeah, you have the West Coast Sevens. There's a tournament coming up in here in San Diego next month too. I think that rugby it's the sport, whatever level you play at, it's so good for men and women. Like, so many of my teammates that I had back in my 20s and people who became these such talented players didn't start that way. I think that, like, just playing the game of rugby, it's such a character builder because you're forced to do such challenging physically and mental things that, like, I think I encourage people who might be a little afraid, shy, haven't had this structure of, like, this, like, high athletic ability growing up to just jump right in and try it. And you do get beat up, you get black eyes, you get serious injuries, but it's like you kind of, like, get over that. You know what I mean? And it's like you learn through playing that sport, like you develop that toughness, and you got to sometimes just throw yourself in the pot. But
yeah, it's one of those things as well as, you know, I think team sports is the best thing for development of young athletes. And because you're not doing it alone. And, you know, there's the common phrase of having kids, you know, just in general, of it takes a village. And it's like, you can rely on other people to help you. You just have to be willing to ask. And team sports and rugby specifically is so important in that, because you have to be able to communicate in the game. You have to be able to tell people what you want. You have to be able to tell people that you need something. And you have to be able to back it up and do it physically when they ask for help. So it's so important that, like, team sports, rugby specifically, it's going to build not just your physical athletic base and your cardiovascular health, but it's going to build your network. It's going to build your friend group, and it's going to be people that, you know, you call and you talk to for the rest of your life. And that's so, it's tough, especially once you get, you know, our age, mid-30s, right? Like, hey man, I'm moving houses. Can you help me out? And people are like, nah, you know, I got something going on. And in this sport, it's like, yeah, I got you. You got 35, 40, 50, 60 people that are like, yeah, I got you. And most of the time, all you got to do is say, oh, you know, I'll buy you a case of beer and some pizza.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, dude, I'm in. Let's do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, dude. The community is, yeah, I know. It's like it's such a big thing. So, for this gala that's happening on August 29th at the University Club in downtown San Diego with the Golden Eagles, like, what can we expect if we want to come and support you guys?
Yeah. So, you know, one of the biggest things is the team's going to be there. The men's team will be there. We're doing everything we can to support the rugby right now. And this gala, you know, hopefully we're going to make this an annual thing. We've got some really great partners coming out. The AC Green Foundation. AC Green played for the Showtime Lakers. He's got a couple invites out in front of, you know, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Byron Scott. You know, so hopefully we can get a couple of those guys there, sit, meet the players, you know, hang out and, you know, meet these, one, current Olympians and two, future Olympians, representing their country, you know, playing the sport at the highest level you can get internationally, and, you know, have a good time. You know, one of the things that, you know, us at the Golden Eagles pride ourselves on is gathering and engaging. You know, we are a nonprofit, and, you know, the big thing for us is 100% of all money that comes into our nonprofit goes to cause. You know, all of our overhead is covered by an anonymous group of donors, so that every dime, every penny that comes in, I know pennies aren't really in circulation anymore, but every penny that comes in is going to the players and the programs, so they can be as successful as possible. And it goes back to, it's going to care and it's going to development pathways.
Nice.
One, we need to take care of the players that are there now. And two, we need to develop the players that are going to be there in 5 or 10 years. And, you know, elongate the competitive landscape for rugby in the United States. We'll have an auction, you know, some signed jerseys, some signed balls, you know, a few other items as well. And a chance to just hang out with, you know, we've talked so much about the community already. It's a chance to become a part of the community. We have a group that bought one of our gold sponsorships. It's called the Youth Rugby Initiative. And the Youth Rugby Initiative is about getting rugby into elementary and middle schools. And they're putting forward an auction item that is free. All you got to do is sign up. And what we want you to do is, you know, if you got kids or nephews or grandkids or anything, the Youth Rugby Initiative is going to send you a kit of rugby balls, flags, cones, jerseys, so that we can get more kids playing the game at a young age. And, you know, one of the best things about sport and about rugby in general, or rugby specifically for me, is every single person who has ever played the game at any level, anywhere in the world, started in the same exact spot. We didn't know how to play. You know, some countries, you know, you look at New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, you know, some of these countries, they might have a step up on us because it's on TV all the time and they were able to watch it. But when that 4-year-old kid set foot on a rugby field for the first time, he still didn't really know what he was doing. He'd seen it, but he doesn't know the rules. He doesn't know really how to catch a pass or run or tackle or ruck or maul or scrum or, you know, lifting a line out, anything like that. And, you know, you never know if you're going to be that next Perry Baker, Ilona Maher, Alev Kelter, Spiff Sedrick, Kayvon Williams, Steve Thomasine, Carlin Isles, unless you pick a ball up. And so YRI, putting that together, and it's however many people want to sign up. We'll send as many kits as you want, and just to get the game introduced to people. And the reason I played for as long as I did, and so many people. I mean, I know guys that are playing in their 70s.
Oh wow!
That started in their 20s. They've been playing for 50 years. The reason they keep playing is because they fell in love with it at some point. The game did something to them at some point where it was the best love affair you can ever have. And I'm sure a lot of those guys and gals that are still playing in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, I'm sure their spouse is pissed because they're having to contend with a second love. So, yeah, I think, that's what the GALA is about. We want to introduce new people to the game. We want to bring back people who have been a part of it in the past. And, we want to celebrate the ones that are still doing it and wearing the red, white, and blue, wearing our flag on their chest, our crest on their chest, day in and day out, and representing the United States. We want them to be Olympic heroes.
Well, I'm pumped. I'm excited, dude. I work around the corner, and I'm going to be rolling through with a bunch of the bartenders here in San Diego. So I don't know how that's going to go, if it's going to be a hit or it's going to be a disaster. But either way, we're coming.
I'll tell you now, our events, we're our nonprofit, right? And everyone looks at nonprofits like, oh, hoity-toity, they got to take care of what they got to take care of. But we're here to have a good time, dude.
Yeah.
Like, we're rugby guys and we're rugby gals. And we're supporters of the game. We go to events around the world. So this coming year, they just came out with the schedule for the 26-27 HSBC Sevens World Series. I believe it's 9 tournaments around the world. We'll be in the Golden Eagles. Will be in Cape Town in December, New York in March, Hong Kong in April, and then Bordeaux at the end of May. And obviously, let's have a conversation. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Taylor, and Taylor can put you in touch with me. Like, we want to support these athletes as much as we possibly can. And like you said earlier, Taylor, it's people helping people, people supporting people. And that's what we're here for. But we're also going to have a good time. Like in Cape Town, we'll have dinner with the team. An event with the team. Like, go hang out, gather and engage. Come together and hang out. We'll go wine tasting up in Stellenbosch, which is like the Napa Valley, the number 1 wine region in South Africa. We'll have a dinner with the coaches and the donors. Sit there and ask the coach, hey, why'd you pick this person and not that person? What's the game plan against New Zealand going into game 2? Ask those tough questions, and then we have a box at the stadium, and you're there for 8, 10, 12 hours. Like, let's hang out. Let's have some drinks. Let's talk. Let's gather. Let's be together, because it takes a village to raise a family. It takes a village to support a country. It takes a village to support a rugby team in the U.S. And that's what we like. We love it. It's the most fun you want to have every weekend.
Hell yeah. Well, Danny, thank you so much, man, for coming on and talking to me today about, the direction of the team and this event coming up on August 29th at the University Club in downtown San Diego. I'm going to post a link where people can get tickets. And like you said, all the money, 100%, goes towards the care program and the team and the Golden Eagles. I'm coming through. I think it's going to be a blast. What else, man? Is there anything else one last thing you'd like to say or message, or anything you don't think we touched on in this conversation?
No, man, I think I just want to say thanks to you. The power of rugby and what it can do to put, a chance encounter together and bring something like this together, and people helping people. Like, it's so awesome to connect with you on a random evening, stout Irish bar in San Diego, and here we are a few weeks later, trying to put this on for help support and push this out to more people from my network to your network. It's awesome. So thank you a ton for having me on, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Hopefully you'll be working at least after the event.
We'll
so I'm already pushing people down to stout.
Hell yeah. All right. Yeah, Danny, well, I guess I'll see you next month, and thank you. I appreciate you.
Absolutely, brother.
All right. See you, Danny. A huge thank you to Danny Barrett for joining me on Wellness on the Rocks and for sharing your journey through rugby and the Olympics and life after competition. Once again, the Golden Eagles U.S. Men's Olympic Rugby Fundraising Gala takes place Saturday, August 29th, beginning at 6 p.m. at the University Club in downtown San Diego. Tickets are available now through the link in this episode's description. If you are unable to attend but would still like to support the athletes, the care program, and the journey towards LA 28, you can learn more and make a contribution at goldeneagles.org. You can also follow the Golden Eagles on Instagram at golden.eagles7s and Danny at bookem650. Thank you for listening to Wellness on the Rocks. Follow the podcast at wellness_on the rocks. And please share this episode with anyone who loves rugby, believes in supporting the Olympic athletes, or wants to become part of this mission. We'll see you next time.